Welcome to the Wanderer's Universe, where stories filled with magic and mysteries are told to all those wishing to listen. I, the wandering storyteller, shall be your host today. Let's start then, shall we? We resume our story in New York City, USA. As he was about to reach the entrance door, the young man noticed something out of place. The door's lock looked broken. Annoyed, though not exactly surprised, as it was not the first time it happened since he moved there, Damian exclaimed inwardly, his mood now slightly dampened. Perfect. Just perfect. Someone broke the lock. Again. What a shitty neighborhood. Rubbing his face helplessly, he thought, I really need to find another apartment. This one's security is horrible. Pushing those thoughts aside, he instead started walking to the staircase by the elevator. He would have loved to be able to ride the latter, however. It had been out of service for months now, despite the vocal protest of pretty much all the tenants living in the building. That was New York City for you. That, combined with the job he hated, made the prospect of leaving more and more enticing for Damian. As soon as his feet reached the third floor, however, his previous gloomy thoughts evaporated. With an anticipating grin on his face, he walked toward the opposite side of his own apartment's door, which was Sophia's. While his steps brought him closer, he noticed her door ajar. Did she leave it open for me? I'll take that as a good sign. He thought, amused. Unfortunately, as soon as he pushed the door completely open, the greeting words he was about to utter died on his lips with his previous happy grin. What replaced it was unprecedented seriousness, mixed with some fear at the scene playing in front of him. Indeed, a man looking like a demented hobo wielded a gun aimed at the direction of Sophia and her daughter. The redhead was begging the man to let her daughter go, while the latter stayed silent, looking terrified as tears ran down her adorable chubby cheeks. The contrast was truly heartbreaking. The dirty-looking man, however, was ignoring the two, muttering a string of incomprehensible words. Clearly, the man was completely insane, and if it had been any other circumstances, Damian might have felt some pity for him. But certainly not now, not when he was pointing a gun at both the woman he cared about and the little girl who could potentially become his future daughter. Instead, dark emotions surged inside him, making him hesitate as to what would be the best course of action. Time seemed to freeze as many possible scenarios went through his mind, and, to be frank, not all were heroic. That was until he met her eyes and caught the unsaid words on her lips. He read, "Run away" on her lips. Not "save me" or even "save my daughter." She simply wanted him safe. Feeling a surge of shame in his heart, he thought, damn it, compared to her I'm really trash, aren't I? Letting out a silent sigh, he continued with a growing resolve in his eyes, chasing away his fear. What was it again? Something like, true bravery can only be discovered in the face of death? Well, seems like today I'll find out if I'm as brave as I think I am. His inner monologue stirred up his emotions, surges of adrenaline erupting throughout his whole body, numbing his fear and bolstering his courage. The glint of resolve filling his gaze seemed to be strong enough that even the redhead beauty picked up on it, shaking her head slightly with a terrified expression plastered all over her face. Despite being very discreet, her reaction was immediately caught by the mentally deranged hobo, who subconsciously lowered his gun and started to turn slowly in Damian's direction. Seeing the man turning in his direction, Damian knew it was now or never. Any delay would result in him getting shot without being able to retaliate. Gritting his teeth, the young man shouted inwardly, "I'll get you, fucker." As soon as those words materialized in his mind, his body exploded in movements, the blood rushing in his leg muscles, making the latter grow slightly as they pushed against the solid hardwood floor, propelling his figure at a speed that surprised even himself. At that moment, time seemed to slow down, with the following events feeling to Damian like a series of still images. A punch was thrown toward the man's face, breaking his nose, while a shot was fired before the gun dropped to the floor. As soon as the gun touched the ground, Damian grabbed it before aiming at the other man's torso, pulling the trigger until the bang sound turned into clicks. The other man swiftly fell to the ground, blood gushing from the several gunshot wounds he received, his body swiftly turning motionless. It was then that time seemed to resume its normal pace. Seeing the previously fierce man lying motionless on the floor, his life and death unknown, while Sophia and her daughter were still unharmed, a feeling of relief washed over Damian's heart, prompting him to mutter, "I did it, I did it." Strangely, his breathing seemed to become more and more laborious, while a wave of exhaustion threatened to overwhelm his mind. At first, he chalked it up to the life and death situation he had just gone through. However, after the adrenaline coursing through his veins dried up, his gaze was attracted by a red tint below. Lowering his gaze, he suddenly found that his white dress shirt was growing more and more red, and that was when it hit him. "Fuck, I think I got shot." Back on Sophia's side, the situation unfurled so quickly that neither Sophia nor her daughter were able to understand what was happening before it actually happened. In less than a few seconds, the madman who had broken into her home and was previously threatening them with a loaded gun was now on the floor, bleeding out so heavily that even someone with no medical background could see that he was a goner. However, it was not the bleeding corpse on her apartment's floor that concerned her. No, instead, it was her neighbor, Damian. Indeed, the man who had, despite having no relation with her and her daughter, risked his life to save them was now bleeding heavily from the bullet wound on his stomach, though he seemed to have yet to realize it. With the life on the line, Sophia could not keep wasting time. Shaking herself from her stupor, Redhead suddenly heard, "Fuck, I think I got shot." She stood corrected. Damian had clearly realized his predicament. Shoving the random thought to the side, she dashed toward her kitchen, grabbing a clean towel before running back toward Damian. As she was pressing the towel on his wounds to stem the blood flow, she also guided him toward the sofa, helping him settle down on it as gently as possible. While doing so, words of comfort left her mouth before she switched to softly chiding him for his recklessness. Then her words turned back comforting once more. The cycle went on until her speech became somewhat incoherent, all the while having tears running down her fair cheeks, the crystalline drops mixing with a growing crimson mark on the man's white shirt. Despite her emotions going haywire, the young mother did not forget to grab her phone to dial 911, though whether they'd be able to arrive on time to save the young man was unknown. Seeing the panic on the redhead's face, Damian said weakly, while flashing a reassuring smile, though the sickly white color his face sported from severe blood loss had pretty much the opposite effect. "It's okay, Sophia. I'm sure I'll be okay. I'll be okay." The words left his lips while he softly patted the hand she laid on his chest. As seconds passed by, coldness progressively invaded his body, with his mind turning hazier. He felt so tired, so heavy. Strangely, as his mind started drifting away, the memory of his last conversation with his family came back to him, prompting him to remark, his voice barely above a whisper. "You know, I'm glad the two of you are fine. It's just too bad that I couldn't ask you out." His words seemed to break something in her. Sobs started racking her body, making it difficult to understand what she said next. "Why didn't you, Damian?" While his consciousness started to fade, a last thought appeared in Damian's mind. "Because I was a coward." As that last thought came to an end, his heart stopped beating, his vitality extinguished, and soul dispersed. His life had ended. An hour ago, a young man disheartened with his current life regained hope, while a young single mother drained from having to raise her young daughter alone on a minimum wage job felt the winds of change blow in her heart. Maybe. An hour later, though, the young man was lying lifeless on the young mother's apartment's floor, the woman overwhelmed with despair as she felt his breathing stop, the blood still flowing slowly from his wound, growing colder alongside her own heart. Two lives intertwined, but now forever separated. Oh, how fickle life could be. Time has a tendency to slip through one's fingers, hasn't it? Sadly, it seems that I must halt my retelling today. Fear not, though, as it is only a matter of time before we meet again. Until then, mysteries and magic may abound in stories, but remember that the most fantastical of them all is life itself.